So hello to all of my audience, and today we have a very interesting guest in our studio. I am welcome here in our program Ms. Dewi Sukarno, businesswoman, television and media personality, philanthropist, and the First Lady of the President of Indonesia, Sukarno.
Yes.
Right. Thank you for visiting us, and first of all, I want to thank you for actually being brave to visit Ukraine and Kiev in these difficult times, because the information about rocket attacks is more and more frequently, and today you've heard the air alert. Does it scare you?
No, I experienced Second World War. I experienced the coup d'etat in Indonesia. I experienced the revolution and then the violence, so I'm not afraid.
What made this decision to come over to Ukraine right now and to see everything with your own eyes?
Yes, because from last year, February, ever since Russian came to Ukraine, invading and unreasonable reasons, they cannot never justify what they are saying. It's a lie, and another lie overcoming the first lie, and then I feel so angry. My energy came from anger against President Putin. That's my energy that come from my anger. Yes, and every day I watch the television from morning till night, the newspaper, all about Ukraine. I have been following from the beginning till today, and my newspaper clipping is that thick. Yes, so I know all about what's happening here.
I see. And you already visited Kiev region, the cities that were occupied and were released from the occupiers lately?
Yes. I came here for the first time in 1962. I was only 22 years old, to have more knowledge and to study about Soviet Union. On those days, Moscow, Leningrad, and Sochi and Kiev. And in Kiev, now it's called Kyiv. I enjoy seeing beautiful ballet, great opera, and beautiful buildings. And it is so sad and unacceptable to see all those beautiful buildings are being destroyed and people are being murdered, killed, and it's unbearable. So I feel I had to do something, and I'm the president of two foundations. One is called Earth Aid Society, and another one is called Amitié Sans Frontières. These two organizations try to support the people of Ukraine, and I'm here assisted and supported by Ghost.
Okay,
yes.
Okay. We will talk about your organizations and your activity here in Ukraine also a little bit later, but now I want to ask you more about your emotions from what you saw in Bucha, Borodyanka, because I tell you, a year ago, I was traveled with foreign journalists right after the occupation stopped. Yes. And what we saw
in the south part of
no, in Kiev region.
In
just
Kyiv.
In Kiev region.
Yes.
And what we saw just a few days after the occupation, it was much more terrible than you could have seen today. But anyway, I think that you had a chance to spoke to people there, to authorities there. So what emotions you will bring home from what you see?
It is so terrible, it's so cruel, it is so ugly, it is so horrible. And I wish the Russian people would know what's going on. I hope they will not listen to what Putin is saying, you know, because there is no freedom in Russia. And I know the Russian people, if they know the truth, they would have, yes.
Talking about Russian people, it's very difficult to break through all this propaganda. Russian governments that are fighting with some kind of mystical Nazis, fascists here in Ukraine. Sometimes they're fighting with NATO or Western countries. So how this mental illness of their leader and these schizoid ideas can be broken by the real words of persons like you, for example. How could you, and do you see the ways how to break through this propaganda to Russian people?
Well, first, unfortunately, because of the televisions and Russian televisions and the Russian newspaper, they are used by the government, their propaganda, and then I guess all the Russian people were blindly believing. But younger generation, because of the network, they know what's going on. But if you make a little noise, you are arrested and you are put in a prison. So people are scared, and some brave people started to make a demonstration or to do the prayers for the sacrificed Ukrainian people. But they hope the mother of the Russian soldiers, there is a big organization by the mothers of the Russian soldiers. If they will know the truth and if they will hate the war, they should make the action. It has to come from the Russian itself to make. Yes.
How do you see the international leaders of opinion, the international politicians that really thoughtful and understand what's going on? Are they effective to somehow affect to this audience in Russian Federation? I'm asking it because you say that you learned a lot about what's going on here. You see a lot on the television.
Yes.
I know there's been a lot of diplomatic work by our government, by our president, especially in Europe, especially in North America. But in Asian countries, is it enough information? Except for you can have access to any information. So Asian people, they do understand the depth of the tragedy that's going on here in Ukraine.
Well, at least the Japanese, yes. I see the television news almost every day. Every 1 hour, we have the news about Ukraine. And then newspaper, the first page, the second page, the third page, there were lots of articles on Ukraine, a lot. So the Japanese people are very sympathized with Ukraine. Yeah.
And what about other countries? You travel a lot.
I don't know Southeast Asian countries, but I guess they have what we are watching. They must have been watching the same from BBC or from Agence France Presse or UPI. I think they must be watching the same.
You know, that's interesting that there's still some countries in European Union that are close to our borders that still don't understand the real consequences that might affect their countries too if they do not do something with this. That's why I'm asking how it affects, for example, the economy, as you can see, of Japan, how people understand that it can affect their life too, because we're very, very far from Japan, actually.
Yes, it did affect Japan. First, the Japanese went down so badly, and then, of course, the prices of goods are becoming higher, and for example, I love champagne, but the champagne is gone. Yes.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Not completely,
Yeah, I understand.
but difficult to get one now. Yes. So it is affecting Japanese people's life as well. But it's not that bad compared to the Ukrainian people. Nothing. Nothing.
You know, I wanted to ask you about your experience, because you not only travel a lot, you speak a lot of very famous people, the politicians, the people from culture, and so on. So what's from all these talkings during this war? I understand that there is not war just in Ukraine. There are lots of small conflicts and wars still around the world. But talking to all these people who can affect the situation globally as a whole, do you surprised by anything that these people can do but do not do in this situation, the situation in other conflicts, or you are, from your experience, are not surprised with anything at all?
I think there are two kinds of people. One is what you think you'd act, but what you think some people just observe. Or some people only think of the security of their own, But first of all, the reason for Putin to attack Ukraine, speaking of Nazis, and try to save their people from neo-Nazi, but he himself is worse than Nazi. He himself is like a Nazi. I don't even understand where is the idea come from him.
Actually, it's very difficult to understand with normal psychological health people to understand his intentions. But from the historical point of view, we have our history with the Second World War. You have your history with Second World War II in your country. So we understand what it can bring to, especially when he's trying to manipulate with a nuclear weapon. You remember what is this. I want you to say something from your remembrance and try to apply to the people of the world who is watching you right now to what he can bring the world with his manipulation with nuclear weapon.
It is very hard for me to understand how Putin starting to always scaring about nuclear weapon. Time to time he mentions and then just to like blackmailing the entire world. And this psychological war it shouldn't be there because the human being, we will be destroying the planet, the Earth, by using such weapons. It will be the end of the world. And also, hopefully, NATO will invite Ukraine to be a member of NATO because it is not possible that just one dictator in Russia and another country's dictatorship is governing the world. It's very dangerous. So NATO is so important for European country and America and as well as for Japan. So NATO should be very strong towards the Russians.
To defend us. Yeah.
Because the power should be equal.
Should be balanced.
Balanced. Yes. Should be balanced, yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because Ukraine cannot lose against Russia. Cannot. Because it will be, if Ukraine is going to lose, and if the world admitted, allowing Ukraine to be lost, it will be the cemetery of democracy. Yeah. Ukraine will be the cemetery of democracy if the world let down the Ukraine. So you have to fight. We have to fight.
So this breaking the international law will just, if Russia wins, will bring to the domino principle. So yes. Other countries will see the weakness of these institutions like NATO and United Nations organization and so on. And
that's
just
right. Yes.
It will be chaos and collapse of the planet.
Yeah. So we cannot let down Ukraine. Impossible. If we let down the Ukraine, it will be the cemetery of democracy.
But still, a lot of politicians afraid to give quite enough weapons because even if they say that they are proud how we fight on the battlefields, they are proud how our warriors, very professional, very strong people and volunteer organizations in Ukraine that gather and help to our army, but still they're afraid of all this manipulation by Putin's nuclear weapon.
Yes.
And I once more get back to Japanese tragedy history. So it's wound that never get well, I understand, even though it happened long time ago.
Yeah. And the nuclear weapon today is 1,000 times bigger than the one that was fought on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Can you imagine? 1,000 times stronger, powerful nuclear weapon today. It's the one that went down in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's nothing compared to today's nuclear weapon. You know?
Yeah.
It maybe 2 will finish the entire Ukraine, or maybe just even 1. Can you imagine? It's 1,000 times more strong, more powerful.
I cannot imagine. I just think that he can imagine. I mean, Putin, if he can ever imagine something except for Nazis and fascists here in Ukraine.
He just tried to scare and blackmail, kind of blackmailing. He's mentioning time to time of if may use the nuclear weapons, but I think it will be the end of the world if he use.
You used to work with the United Nations Environment Program, right?
Ah, yes, I did. In 1980s, yes.
It had a desire to help refugees as well as people living under regimes such as North Korea. So you have acquainted to that. Tell a little bit about your experience in this field, and do you see that Russia is trying to get to themselves the experience of North Korea right now, shutting down all the connections to the world?
Well, Kim Jong-un, the young leader of North Korea, is decided to go on his own way against America, and then so Russia and North Korea has the same enemy in America. So I think they are going to get tagged together. But 15 years ago, I think there was a lack of food, and I guess it was, some people say 5 million people die by hunger, but maybe 3 million. If my neighbor country is dying because no food, because of hunger, I had to help. So I helped, brought 120 tons of rice to North Korea as a, yes.
And you helped, if it really was possible to help anyhow for the refugees, because it's very difficult from what we know to leave the country, the North Korea. So what would you say about the refugees from the Russia Federation? How to treat them around the world? So you ready to accept them, for example, for example, in your country too, or you think that these people have to fight inside their country against the regime, against war, but not just leave, like a covered, I'm sorry for this word.
Those people who can afford to leave the country, they are leaving, but it costs money, it costs a lot of things, and I think most of the people in North Korea, they have to stay there. They cannot leave. I don't think I understand your questions.
Okay, the question is, lots of refugees from Ukraine.
Ah, yes.
Because of the war in our territory,
yes.
Especially it's women with the children. And the most refugees from Russian Federation, it's men who doesn't want to be mobilized. But they still mostly believe in Putin's, all the slogans and Putin's politics. So how should we, around the world, treat to these refugees? Or you better wish that they stayed in their country and fight against Putin to stop the war?
To fight against Putin, I think is very difficult for the moment, and unless the Russian people will create the revolution. But I think it's not possible for the moment, you know. But those refugees who from the Ukrainian refugees went to Poland or Moldova or rest of the other country. I think in Japan also there are hundreds of Ukrainians who escaped to came to Japan, and they have been treated very nicely. We are accepting them very friendly and very nicely. Yes, but the Russian soldiers to be not mobilized, I don't know where they go. For the Russians to escape out from Russia might be quite difficult, but if they are brave enough to go abroad, and then they are contacting each other, and also to contact inside of Russia.
The opposition.
Yeah, yes.
So you believe that it can be ruled outside the country,
but
right?
even there is people, some rich, very rich Russians, friend of Putin, but gradually against his idea, I think they have been assassinated, no? Mysteriously killed. There are many.
That's why they're silent.
Yes.
Talking about the instruments that could help to solve this problem in the middle of European continent, you reminded me about your visit to the Soviet Union, about theaters, about ballets, about all this culture thing that associates with the great Russia culture, for example, in the world. But as we see, no culture.
But every culture in Russia now came from Ukraine, isn't it?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. I'm talking as a whole, how it could ever happen. The culture, the art, books, history, cinema, theaters, all the tools that are invented by people to preserve us not to cross this line, our dark side, the animal side. And from what we see right now, all these atrocities in the east of Ukraine right now that we observe doesn't work. And it didn't work. The propaganda won this time in 21st century. So why this instrument doesn't work? Why do you think it will be the end of these instruments and the other thing will be very powerful? It's much stronger laws and punishments, like we saw during 2 years of pandemic, for example, in the world. So why it didn't work?
I think it's the fear inside of the people. It is the fear that does not work. But Ukrainian people, the Ukrainian soldiers are so brave and they're patriotic. They will fight with their love for Ukraine. But Russian soldiers are not the same. But the problem, I think, is the people prefer to live in an easy way. And if it does not come to you as a danger, they don't care. If the Ukraine will be attacking Russia, and if the Russian people will feel the fear, then they will wake up. But otherwise, if the Russian people are having a normal life, they have no fear, and so they prefer to have an easy life, and they prefer to ignore. They just like to keep their normal life.
So to understand what really is going on in Ukraine, they have to feel the same, I mean, what you're saying, right? So until they feel what is hurt and drama that's going on here in Ukraine, they will not understand until the time. Right?
The Russians, the Russians, yeah. But the rest of the world, because you are watching the television, you are reading the newspaper, so they know what's going on, and I think one day the whole world will stand up for Ukraine.
People like you, I mean, people who desperate to defend the civilization choice and democratic choice of our country, there are lots of such people that you met with. Are they powerful right now? Are they gathered and ready to help Ukraine? Because we understand in this situation, there's not much help. We need until we stop the war. Are they ready to be with us and help us?
Well, Japanese Prime Minister, finally, he stand up and then together with America, try to help Ukraine in a more action way.
And what about philanthropists and people like you? I mean, you have the television shows, right? You take part in television shows.
Yeah.
You have a huge audience. You can speak to them.
No. My television show is a variety show. It's
entertainment.
I don't have the interview shows. No.
I see.
Yes.
But what will you bring, let's say, what will you bring from Ukraine? Because you're like ambassador right now, so you got back to Japan. So will you have the opportunity to communicate to other people like you who are ready to help Ukrainians right now?
In Japan, we have a kind of network to try Ukraine. There are many goodwill people. Yes, there is. But of course, they don't know how to reach or how to contact. No, they don't know. I didn't know either. Yes, so there are so many goods sent to Ukrainian embassy. For example, heat tech is underwear, kind of underwear, top and below, keeps you warm. And then also heat pad you put in the back of it, okay. And then also diapers and flashlights. And because you have no electricity, only 50% working, so oil stove. And so the Ukrainian embassy cannot afford to put so many, so they sent to one storage, two storage, but they did not have money to transport to Ukraine. So my foundation called Earth Society and Amitié Sans Frontières, these two organizations helped. We send 40 feet big container, 4 of them, and it will arrive in a few weeks to Poland, and then from Poland it will come into Ukraine. But many people try to help, but they don't know how to.
So it was your initiative. So you found how to get all the stuff to Ukraine and how to come here.
That's right.
I see.
Yeah. Because I knew I got advice from the Ukrainian ambassador, and then also there are Ukrainian opera singers that I know very well, ballet dancer also, and then some community, Ukrainian community in Japan, and then through them we were able to send goods, yes.
So that's what I was asking you before about communication. On the media level, explaining the situation in Ukraine, that's quite enough. On diplomatic level, high level with politicians, that's quite enough. But on the level for volunteers and non-governmental organizations who can provide help, that's not enough.
Because they wanted to do, you know, it took me almost a year how to do it, yes. I didn't know who to contact and so forth. Thanks God, in Ukraine, we had the help and the support of the ghost. So from last year, February, ever since the Russian invasion started, I was working for to collect the money for the United Nations High Commissioner of Refugees in Japan, and then I made 4 charity gala for Ukrainian embassy, and then for Red Cross Society and Japanese Red Cross Society, and there is a big NGO called Aid and Relief Japan. And I have been collecting the money, and I have been giving them. But I said to myself, why should I giving just money to collect the money, but why don't I do myself?
Yeah.
Yes, so, but I didn't know how to do it. But then one day, the Ukrainian ambassador said, we have so many goods, and we don't have enough money to send it. So every goods are in this storage house. So I went to see the storage, and I was surprised that so many Japanese people send their goods. Yes. So
this is very good that you just said about it, because I think that a lot of organizations that are profiled to solve this problem are watching us, and they will make this communication much, much easier, especially with the Asian countries, because we understand that, yes, the problem is still, even if the year passed, but we still have this problem. I wanted to ask you one thing about the attitude towards life. I mean, you, again, traveled a lot. I've found a lot of books of analytics. They say that our world became much more defended, much more easy. There are less of child mortality, there the great medicine right now, development, and all other things. But this is statistics, and this is real life. From what you saw traveling around the world, can you say that this world is much, much more defended?
The world now, I think, I'm so scared that if this kind of war continues and hatred against
humanity.
This Ukraine war can be the entrance of the third world war. It should not be, but one thing can, if accidentally something happens, then it will be the third world war.
Yes,
you know?
and it's because...
So, and then now the world is fight the democracy, and then dictatorship is now fighting Russia, China,
Yes.
Iran, North Korea, and then there are so much problems in Mexico, Brazil, Africa, and Peru. Violence and demonstrations, and the world is getting so mad, incredible.
Oh, really?
No.
So nothing changes. Yeah.
What's up?
What is the most terrible situation that you saw in the latest time?
Just some days ago, the Brazil they break into the parliament, and then the Ministry of Justice they break the court, like what happened at the pro-Trump President Trump, pro-Trump President Trump. They attack the
Capitoli.
Yes.
Yes.
So it's the same thing happened in Brazil because they didn't like the new president. They think the election was not fairly done. I think it's an excuse, but
it shows that nothing changes in human nature in the planet, right? So we just have to understand this. And is it any possibility to change the situation? I will tell you why I'm asking it. Because Asian countries, okay, let's say Japan, is mostly a country of Buddhism philosophy, right? And Buddhism, its philosophy, it helps to live much more, from what I see, healthier life. Healthier exception of environments, of human communication, and to your health. So you look just perfect from what I see. Right? Is it because of this Buddhism philosophy? Maybe there might be some philosophy that can save the world.
Well, if I may speak about my organization called Us a Society, we have three slogans. One, stop fighting and forgive each other. Palestinians and Arabs fighting. Before was Russia and Ukraine now, but Germany and France.
Georgia before.
Yes, and China and Japan, China and Korea, whatever. Stop fighting, forgive each other and stop fighting. Bring the peace and order in the world. Order and peace to the world. The second one is to give compassion in every living soul, the human, the animals, the woods, and then also to keep blue sea and green land, because these circumstances, the garbage they are just throwing to the sea, and what's happening. And also, if we are not careful enough, this planet is so fragile, and one day it will be us who will be going to suffer.
Do you think the little amount of personalities like you can change the situation? Or you are waiting for this from politicians, or you maybe still, it's fantastic, but maybe still you believe in humanity to the ordinary people who can just gather and watch, observe all the chaos that we are creating around us and change the situation? Who you believe?
I'm hopefully people like you and me will be overcoming the rest of the other people who don't care. But when the earth is being destroyed by human beings, because of the war, because of when we human beings face the danger, then they will realize what has to be done. Maybe the human have to be pushed and pushed until they recognize But that's why I think it's so important that to do the effort. Yes, because as long as the human being exists on Earth, I think the humans are so egoistic, and the history itself is from ever since the human exists on the Earth.
Yeah.
They are fighting. The stronger attacked and loved thing, and there is no end. The history itself is war, 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 war. There is no end.
But some say that it brings the evolution.
Yeah.
After each war, we create some organization internationally to preserve peace for a small amount of period. But still, no answer.
Oh, so hopefully our consciousness will win against the evil mind.
Yes, I hope too, and thank you again for your help, for your support, for your will to come here. And I really believe that there's gonna be a time when the war ends and we will have a chance to communicate with you on your YouTube channel about all the cultural experiences and all the cultural peculiarities that can help to make this world better.
Yes, yes.
In entertainment way, mostly, not a politician one.
But you are very lucky to have President Zelensky, because if he wasn't there, I think Ukraine would have been taken by Russia, by Putin. Mr. Zelensky is great. He is so great. Alone, he's fighting. And all his speeches are so wonderful. Each speech he gave to every different country, he learned the history of all the countries, and he uses a phrase, the correct phrase.
Gets to the heart of
Yes, and touching the people. And his strong will and strong political conviction, he is still standing so still. And so you are very lucky to have President Zelensky.
And we are lucky to have such strong army.
Ah, yes, oh yes, of course, of course.
They are our angels right now.
Because the Ukrainian peoples, they are patriotic passions and ready to throw their life for his family, for his nations, his people. I really pay respect.
Thank you very much. But still, we depend on your support too. So thank you for being here. Thank you very much. Hope to see you again.
Yes.
So this time we have to put the 3 dots in our conversation, hopefully to meet again, maybe in this studio, maybe in your studio, on your YouTube channel. Miss Dewi Sukarno was guest of our project today. Thank you, and see you next week.